Namaste, I'm Nikita, and I simplify your journey by sharing my journey to guide your transition from karma to dharma. So welcome back, and I'd like to bring you back to the second half this time of the self-love webinar. So if you recall, in the first video, we explored the first two stages of self-love. And in this video, we're going to explore the remaining two stages. So just to recap, the first stage is self-care. So self-care is being able to do things for yourself without feeling guilty. So it could be as simple as going to a cafe, having some time out to have a coffee. It could be going for a spa day. It could be having a holiday by yourself. It could be your evening skincare routine. Whatever it is for you that makes you feel like you're taking care of yourself and you're filling up your cup. It could be your weekly yoga class. It could be your workout routine. So it would be different for everyone. So it shouldn't feel like a chore. If, for example, exercise feels like a chore to you, then it's not self-care. It's something that you enjoy, that, as I say, fills your cup. So you know that if you do that on a weekly basis, you are rejuvenated. So for me, it's meditation. I need to do meditation. Like, I can't not do meditation because I simply just will not be me. I will not be at my best. I won't be able to function at an optimal level if I don't do meditation. And therefore, it's a non-negotiable for me. I have to do it. And of course, I enjoy it as well. But it does feel like an act of self-care whenever I do it. Even if I do 3 to 5 minutes, I feel like I've put myself first in that time, which is a lovely feeling. The second stage is self-respect. And this is where we talked about doing things where you're thinking about what's right for you on a values level. So we're going deeper now. So self-care is about physically and mentally doing what is good for you, whereas self-respect is about honoring your boundaries. It's about the way that you treat yourself, the way that you allow other people to treat you as well. That all comes into self-respect. And if you recall, I gave you some tips on that. So learning to say no, for example, communicating your needs, surrounding yourself by positive people, having healthy boundaries, not tolerating disrespect. That's a big one, especially in the workplace, not putting up with it if somebody says something that you're not happy with. And I'm not implying that you become confrontational either, but it's more about being able to speak up and say how you feel in a very polite way, in a very civil way. And actually, if you do so with positive intention, you'll be surprised that the other person will respond positively because it's all about intention. So it's about standing up for your values. That's really what self-respect is. So now we're going to move on to the third stage of self-love. Now, this is where things get a little bit juicy because, again, we're going deeper. This is your self-worth. So we talked about how expressing yourself is really important, standing up for what you believe in, speaking your truth, and that comes from your throat chakra. So if we're marrying up the energy channels, the chakra system, with the mindset, the psychology, we're bringing them both together. So your throat chakra is responsible for speaking up. Now, self-worth, however, comes from your solar plexus, that where you start to develop this intrinsic relationship with your true self, really starting to understand who you are, and you really determine how worthy you are of love, happiness, success, etc. Even money comes from self-worth as well. So this stage, the reason I say it's juicy is because it's really unraveling the depths of who you are, your values, your passion, and even your purpose in life, which is quite a big thing. When we talk about purpose, a lot of people get daunted by that prospect. But actually, what purpose means to me is just knowing yourself, knowing your true personality. So I'm going to give you some tips now for self-worth. So you, again, may want to make notes in your journal. And like I suggested in the last video, this is about reflecting on each one and implementing each one into your system. Like this is about reconditioning your mindset. Okay. So the first tip I'm going to give you for self-worth is identify your core values and then start to live by them. So some people say that they have values, but they don't necessarily reflect those. For example, you might think that you are someone that respects elderly people. That could be a value of yours. That could be something that you really are very proud of, that you're like, actually, do you know what? I really have a lot of respect for older people. And so your mind thinks that's the case. And then you're on a train or a bus and there's an elderly person standing and you don't offer them your seat. So what that implies is there's a conflict of values. So what's happening is the mind thinks that there's a value, but it's not being reflected in your behavior. So the first step in practicing self-worth is to really start to live by your values. So that was just a very simple example. But by doing that more and more with all of your values, you start to become an example of what you are. You know, you've heard that saying, practice what you preach. And I look for that as well. You know, I look for people, especially if I'm going to be mentored by somebody, I look for someone who's walking the talk. And what I mean by that is someone that's living by what they teach. It's not that they're putting on a persona and you can see two personalities in them. It's about being authentic. So the whole point of this self-love exercise is to become your authentic self. Go back to who you are. Go back to your core, if you like. So when you understand your values and you start living with them, you become a lot more aligned and therefore you start feeling more fulfilled and more purposeful. So the second tip I'd like to give you is discover your passions and pursue them. Again, so many people have passions and they don't do anything about them. They might like baking, for example, yet they never bake. They might like gardening, but they don't do gardening. So make time for your passions because, again, it's about telling yourself you are worthy of that time. It's so much easier to say, well, I like baking, but I'm only going to do it if there are other people to bake for. Whereas self-worth is saying to yourself, I love baking and I deserve a home-baked cake for myself, not for other people. And therefore, I'm going to bake a cake today. And then if other people happen to also be there and enjoy it, that's a bonus. So it's not about being selfish. There's a very fine line. And it's about putting yourself first, putting your needs first. And, you know, in its simplest form, it's about saying, I deserve it. I deserve that spa day. I deserve that holiday. And again, I'm not suggesting you go bankrupt as a result. Everything has to be within your means. I think that should go without saying. So making time for your passions in life is another way of exercising self-worth, which will then contribute to your self-love. And then the third tip I have for you, this is quite short, this section, simply because each bit is quite heavy in itself. There's quite a lot to it. The third one is celebrate your accomplishments. This is so important. And when I say celebrate, I mean celebrate by yourself, not with others. It's okay to go for a meal, or open a bottle of champagne, or treat your children when you are happy about something. But the first person you should treat is yourself. So celebrate your accomplishments, whether they're big or small. Take the time to really mark your wins. And if you've ever had any counseling or therapy or coaching, they will also tell you the same thing. Mark your milestones. It's so important. You know, even if someone wants to lose weight, for example, when they lose that first stone, it's like how are you going to celebrate? Are you going to buy yourself some new trainers so you can exercise better? Are you going to buy yourself new gym wear? Are you going to, whatever it might be for you, however you want to mark it, but it's about celebrating for yourself, not for other people. Okay. So again, I'll give you a little bit of time just to make some notes and reflect on those 3 things that I've said. If you feel like you need to, then you can pause this video as well. So self-worth, just to recap, is about discovering your true value. So step 1 is identifying your core values and living by them. That's the most important part. Step 2, discover your passions and pursue them, actually do them. Step 3, celebrate your achievements and your milestones. Okay. And now we come to the 4th stage. So remember I said that self-love has 4 stages according to my system, which has worked on me and has worked on my clients. And this stage is known as self-acceptance. And you'll notice that my voice has gone quieter and I'm speaking slower, because that's what happens when you accept yourself. Everything suddenly slows down. And if you ever felt like you were in a rat race, you no longer feel that anymore. Now, that doesn't mean challenges won't come your way. Doesn't mean everything's going to suddenly be smooth sailing. You'll still have obstacles. You'll still have difficult people. You'll still have negative circumstances. But when you have self-acceptance, you embrace your whole self. And I mean all layers of yourself, your physical self, your mental self, your emotional self, your spiritual self, your financial self, every area of your life you begin to accept and you don't resist anymore. So self-acceptance, according to me, is the culmination of your self-love journey. It's about embracing all aspects of yourself, including your flaws and your imperfections. In fact, when you accept yourself, you no longer see them as flaws. You don't see them as imperfections. I've got people that I coach and they've got like a mole, for example, on their face that they've hated for years, or they've got a crooked tooth. And instead of resisting that and hating that and not wanting to look in the mirror, they start to love that. And they start to see that as a unique part of their personality, of their persona, of who they are. And I've literally had people that have fallen in love, with these so-called defects that they used to think were imperfections, but now they realize that they contribute to who they are. So it's about recognizing that you are enough just the way you are, and that everything that you have, all aspects of your personality, your physical appearance, your emotional state, is there for a reason. And in NLP, we do an exercise called parts integration. It's a very powerful exercise, and I do it with very few clients actually, because they've really got to be ready for it, because it can be quite transformational, but the client's got to be ready. And it's about bringing all these parts of ourselves that we don't like and that we usually push away together. It's so beautiful. If it works, it's the most magical process to facilitate and to witness as well. And I've actually observed, I've been in an NLP group where I've observed my mentor, Sue Knight, demonstrating parts integration. It's a beautiful process. But I'm going a little bit off track. I'll perhaps do another video about that. But it's about bringing all areas of yourself together with self-compassion. It's about letting go of your negative self-talk and celebrating your growth. So true self-acceptance is a continuous process. It's not going to happen overnight, and that's why it's the 4th stage in our journey. but it's a very powerful step towards living a fulfilling and authentic life. So here are a few tips for you to start practicing self-acceptance. The first one is have self-compassion. And what that means is treat yourself with kindness, just like you would speak to or treat a friend. You need to become best friends with yourself. That's a process. Most people that I work with, they don't like themselves anymore. And what I'm doing is I'm encouraging them, guiding them, facilitating them to start, first of all, liking themselves and then loving themselves. So self-compassion is a very important part of that. Number 2 is challenging self-talk, your negative self-talk. So as you know, we all have negative and positive thoughts every single day. And we also have thoughts that are neutral, by the way. But our negative thoughts, for some people, dominate the brain, and we have more of them. And because we have more of them, we engage with more of them, and then we end up going on that spiral of negative thinking. And I do have separate videos about positive thinking if you would like to watch them. But challenging negative self-talk is essentially about identifying your thoughts and then replacing them with positive sentences or affirmations, as they're known. So this can be quite a task in the beginning, especially if you're not used to it. But eventually what you're doing is you're creating new pathways in your brain, and then your brain will get used to thinking positively and talking positively to yourself and also to others, and it will come out in your language, your verbal language and also your non-verbal language. The next tip I'd like to give you is focus on your strengths. We're now learning so much more about positive psychology in schools. Teachers are being taught, that it's so important. If there's a child that struggles, for example, or if they're neurodivergent or something like that, or if they have dyslexia, it's so important to focus on the child's strengths rather than make them feel guilty about their weaknesses. And it's the same for adults as well. So I encourage you to celebrate your achievements, which we mentioned earlier, but also recognize your strengths. What are you good at? What are you naturally gifted at? Like some people can go in a fridge and there's lots of ingredients there and they can make a delicious meal, even though those ingredients don't seemingly go together, and they can. And then other people would go in there and be like, what am I supposed to do with like one avocado and leeks and then perhaps throw them away or, not utilize them well. So it's little things like that. It's about what are you naturally good at? And sometimes in our society, we're so modest about our strengths. And so I really encourage you to dig deep into this section and really understand, who am I? What am I good at? Then the next tip, now this is a good one. Let go of the need to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. Nobody's perfect. Embrace your imperfections and learn to love yourself unconditionally. So I talked previously about loving physical parts of yourself that perhaps you didn't like before, your nose shape or your height or your weight. But what I mean in this section is about embracing all aspects of your mind as well, your personality, your emotional state. The next tip is surround yourself by positive people. That's so important. People who uplift your spirits and make you feel good about yourself. Now, that doesn't mean you isolate from people who don't, but try to spend more of your time with people who do. And finally, this is the most important, and I really stress this in my workshops and my retreats that I do, practice gratitude. Gratitude is the most important thing to help you to feel more positive and more content. I actually have a free gratitude guided meditation on my website and my YouTube channel, so feel free to reach out to me if you would like the link. Otherwise, you can have a look for it yourself online. So just to wrap up, self-love is a journey. It's not a destination. It takes time, patience, and self-compassion. By focusing on these 4 stages that we've covered in these 2 videos, you can create a solid foundation for a happier and healthier life, filled with meaning and purpose. So if you would like to implement self-love into your daily life, here are a few ways that you can continue this journey with me. I have a 7-day chakra series meditation available on my website. It's only £7. I'm based in the UK, so I'm operating with pounds. £7 for 7 days for 7 chakras. Very easy. And if you do 1 a day, I promise you will be on a journey of self-love. I also offer Reiki ritual treatments, as well as self-love workshops online, as well as in person. So if there's anything I can do to continue supporting you, do reach out. I would love to hear from you, and I wish you all the very best on your self-love journey. Namaste. Like, follow, and subscribe to stay in my world.